Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Good idea. Awesome. I'm so proud to be next to this guy. Let's go. I almost choked. Jim? I'm such a crybaby. I was choking up during Brenda's.
Yeah.
I mean, she
I'd be
was
doing the same thing.
She was.
The more you talk, the worse it gets.
Is that fall out there?
Yeah. Towards the back.
Is she on the agenda?
Yes.
She's on the agenda.
She's the next presentation.
Oh, that's right. Duh, I knew that. Okay, we will continue with business at hand. We have a presentation on the schedule here, Dr. Israni. And when I introduce...
I feel like a rock star standing
when
here.
I introduce Dr. Israni, I'd like to share a comment that I shared at a gathering recently that she hosted at the school following a bus tour. And that is, we are at a time, we're at a special time in the history of our communities where we have a happy convergence of really first, and I'll say this again in other forums, but I said it first there and I'll say it again here. We have this happy convergence of really first-rate senior executives, chief executives at some of the most important institutions in our community. Dr. Israni at Marysville Joint Unified School District, my friend, and I regard him as a colleague, Mr. Jim Shadd, city manager here in Marysville, Kevin at the county, Chris Champlin at the hospital. What am I leaving out, Jim? Colonel Church at Beale Air Force Base. Excuse me, Willie Witchley. I did that before. Willie Witchley, who is a superb chief executive at the Yuba Water Agency. And it's a time when you have excellent leaders to take advantage of opportunities that are presented. Consider them seriously, and when possible, take advantage, because you've got someone who knows how to execute. At each of these organizations, you have someone who knows how to execute on opportunities. And with that modest introduction, Dr. Srani.
I'm humbled, and thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here. I feel I know each of you individually, and you've given me your time and your very valuable advice. And as a school district, I'm really happy to be here. Again, I'm Fowler Ronnie, proud superintendent of Marysville Joint Unified. I feel like a rock star with this mic. I might break into a move any point at this point. But I have with me my beautiful team. I couldn't do my job without them, just like you. We are who we are because we have a wonderful team with us. My business chief, Ms. Jennifer Pacelia, Assistant Superintendent Business Services, Assistant Superintendent Administrative Services, to do all with discipline and attendance and parent supports, is Mr. Brian Williams. Assistant Superintendent Dr. Gabe Simon for Human Resources, everything to do with personnel. We always hire the best at Marysville. Thank you, Gabe. And, of course, my partner in crime, Mr. J. Trujillo, Assistant Superintendent, Education Services. So, again, we are honored that you'd give us a time today to come and talk to you about our school district. One of the things, I'm new to the district, to the community, and what I find, which is not uncommon, is that very often school districts are not part of the community conversations. And so when we are left behind, we feel like we're catching up all the time. But I must say, in the last 2 years, I don't feel that. I feel like you have really embraced and opened up opportunities to engage with me and for me to engage with you. And so that's a huge thing. And I wanted to call out that there's somebody in this room that challenged me with, why should I send my children to your school? And that's Mr. Robert Suma. And I think he's right there. And I always say to him, what a beautiful question. So I'll start with that. Why would anybody send their children to Marysville Joint Unified School District? So let's quickly go over who we are, the programs we present. We'll be very respectful of your time. I don't have a problem. I speak fast. I have to slow down. The rest of my team has to pick up the pace, yeah? Okay. All right. Very quickly, if you can see if somebody is somebody... Oh, thank you so much. So we just want to start off by saying that our mission and vision, there we go. It's in a nutshell, it's all about children first. We are here to serve the children, serve the community, serve our parents, and make sure we give every opportunity possible for children to be successful in the world of today and in the jobs of tomorrow. The next slide very quickly talks about our organizational model. And what I do want to mention is we have a ground-up model. The Board of Education, the cabinet, the departments, all of us are at the base serving the person on the top. Those are our babies we serve. Currently, the number here shows 10,370. We have increased our enrollment. We are at about 10,500 as of today. And we have a total enrollment, including preschool, almost at 11,000 as of today. And then adult education in the first month alone is up to 100 adults. So we just started school. I've already got 100 adults. Last year, we served 350. This year, in the first month, we had 100. So the next slide. And this one talks about basically how the district is organized and how the sites are organized. We have a collaborative model and shared leadership, just like you do. We have students, staff, and families in the center of what we do. We have the Board of Education, 7-member board, elected officials. We also have labor partners, parents, students who serve on advisory positions. And we also have executive and extended cabinet. As you just saw, my executive cabinet, 5 of us make the executive cabinet. And then we have about 9 others who make the extended cabinet. For the schools, of course, we have, again, students in the center, staff and families, labor partners, parents, and administration. So that's just a structure of how our district works. Next slide. I'm almost done on this one. This is probably the most exciting thing. Many people don't really know. If you're not watching school districts, we have about 16 departments that serve every part of a school district. Starts, of course, with business to do with money, and then, of course, goes to child development, adult education, after school, transportation, what have you. We do have a very robust transportation department. We have about 78 buses on the fleet, but we currently have about 47 to 48 drivers, and our director is getting new bus drivers, so new routes will open up. Again, we do everything we can to get kids to our schools, and we're really proud of what we do. But this is, in a nutshell, just the organizational part. Let me give you the fun part about what we do up from there. Human resources is next.
Thank you, Dr. Azrani. Thank you for this opportunity. Gabe Simon, Assistant Superintendent of Personnel Services, second year in Marysville and 8th year in Human Resources, was a site administrator and a teacher before that. We really focus, obviously, on putting the human back in human resources is what I like to say. Focus on people. People is one of the most important things we do other than the students. So we always look at how do we hire, and better yet, how do we retain people. The market in teaching, as you see it in the news, has changed greatly. So it's really a buyer's market, so to speak, so they can kind of go where they want to go. So we really incentivize things with competitive salary, benefit packages, as well as tons of support. We've created support structures for our teachers who are on emergency waivers or permits, all the way through our teachers up through year 5. And then we have robust staff development for our senior or veteran teachers as well. We've created partnerships with local universities and colleges, Chico, Yuba. We just established a really solid pipeline for teachers with UMass Global that used to be Brandman, that used to be Chapman. And we have 7, soon to be 10 resident teachers that will be establishing a pipeline into single subject and special education credential areas. And we also have really worked on looking at ways to establish pipelines with not only colleges and universities, but also getting out in the businesses locally to promote our classified staff needs as well. I think I'm transitioning to educational services.
Thank you. My name is Jay Trujillo, Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, which is a fancy way of saying that I'm responsible for things under the auspices of teaching and learning. So whether it's ensuring that the kiddos have the resources that they need and the supports that they deserve in order to ensure that they are learning, that the teachers receive the training and the professional development and also the resources that they need to ensure that they are teaching, and that also our principals are doing a bang-up job on the leading side too. So for everybody, we want impact. So what I get a chance to talk a little bit about today is just some of that impact. So everything from college and career to childhood development, some of the programs that Dr. Fall just mentioned, I just want to highlight some of the progress that we've seen just over the course of the last year. Let's just take dual enrollment. Dual enrollment is when students are taking college courses at the same time that they're taking high school courses. We have seen a 20% increase in the students taking dual enrollment and succeeding in that endeavor. We have restarted and instituted GATE programs for our district across the 9-12 spectrum as well as K-6. So we started doing that this past year. We have seen an increase in advanced placement opportunities for our kiddos to the tune of 36% increase. We have increased our honors programs for our middle school students, which serve as a pipeline for advanced placement. We have increased that from, it was 0 2 years ago. We had 0 students enrolled in honors classes. This year we have 551 middle school students. AVID, we have reinstituted AVID at all of our middle schools and our high schools. And we have seen a 217% increase in students participating in our after-school programs, which includes opportunities to accelerate and remediate. Next slide, please. One of the things that we're most proud of over the course of this last year is the development of a graduate profile. A graduate profile is simply a unified vision for our students to graduate college and career ready. The graduate profile was developed in conjunction with large-scale community input as well as input from our students and staff. And it gives us a framework and a shared language of learning to ensure that the kiddos at each grade level and all of our grade spans are meeting appropriate progress indicators as they matriculate through their 12 years of schooling in MJUSD. We also, as many of you probably have heard, opened recently our newest high school, the Middle College Academy, which is operating at the Yuba College campus. So we are really excited about that. Next slide, please. And what I want to highlight here is just our, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, that it's all about providing the students the supports that they need to be successful, because they don't all come to our schools with the same level of preparedness or the same level of support, whether it be at home or what have you. So, for example, this last year we underwent a concerted effort to really increase our wellness opportunities and our wellness supports for our students and their families, K-12. We wrote and were awarded a $13.5 million grant that's going to be utilized well over the course of the next 5 years. We now have wellness hubs in our Lyndhurst High School, with 3 more planned to be implemented this year. And in each of our schools, we have wellness centers. That is, in our schools, sometimes the kiddos just need a place to go because they are not getting their needs met in the classroom. So rather than subject students, for example, to another layer of discipline, how about we subject the kids to layers of support? So these wellness centers are now included in all of our high schools to do just that. We're pretty excited about the transition that we're making in our special education program. That is, we're revamping and, or if you will, taking ownership of students that have typically been sent to the Yuba County Office of Education. And we're slowly making some plans to transition those kiddos back to operation under the banner of MJUSD. The idea here, or the goal, is inclusion. We want to be more explicit and successful in providing inclusion opportunities for our kiddos versus exclusion. So that's something that is in place this year. And we're also pretty excited about the efforts that we're putting into place to ensure that, especially at TK3, literacy for all of our kiddos, to ensure that they are reading by grade level. These are some of the things that just have recently taken place. We're pretty excited about it, and there's more to come. Thank you.
We go all the way from Yuba-Feather and Challenge all the way down to Arboga. Hi, my name is Brian Williams. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Administrative Services. I've been with the district for 20 years. And one of the things I'm going to talk about is something that we're seeing recently, and that is enrollment. Enrollment's going up. We're actually one of the few districts in California that can say that. We are getting more kids, part of it from the wonderful development that's happening here in the city, but also the development that's happening throughout the county. What we have here is the elementary school boundaries for our particular district. We are a unique district in that we cover all the way up from Challenge, and in fact, we actually have parts up. The reason we have joint in our name is that we have students that live in Butte County that come to our school up in Yuba-Feather, so that's where the joint comes from. But we go all the way from Yuba-Feather and Challenge all the way down to Arboga. So we have schools every year that, well, last year Yuba-Feather had 6 snow days. Arboga did not. So it's one of those challenges that we have to try to cover quite literally almost the entire county. We have 13 elementary schools. We have 1 elementary school that's TK through 8, Arboga. In the last years, we've added grades 7th and 8th, so they now have a middle school there as well. We have 2 middle schools that are 6th through 8th grade. Typically, we actually try to have our middle schools be 7 through 8, but because of lack of facilities, because of only having 1 junior high, full junior high, now we have Arboga, but 1 full junior high south of the river, it's become a challenge to have just 7 and 8. So we've had to open it up it's been a challenge to have 6, 7, and 8. We would prefer 6, 7, 8. We would prefer that our 6th graders are getting a 6th grade math teacher and a 6th grade English teacher. Where we have right now, south of the rivers, we've got elementary schools where they're TK through 6th grade, so they're in a self-contained class, so they have a multi-subject teacher they're fantastic at what they do, don't get me wrong. But we would prefer to have that 6th grader get that single subject person that really, really knows and is a specialty in what they're doing. But because we don't have a second middle school south of the river, a full middle school, we just don't have the space to pull that off. We have a charter school. We have MCAA, Marysville Charter Academy for the Arts. It is a wonderful school for our students that are really interested in drama or music, all those types of things. It's a fantastic program. If you ever have a chance to go see one of their productions, please do. They put on amazing shows. Our Abraham Lincoln online class, or online school, None of us liked distance learning, but it was there. And what we found is there are some kids that are just a little bit more comfortable in that environment. So we continued that particular program. We have one school, it's a TK through 8, where if students are going to be better off in kind of an online environment, we have that available to them. We have a couple of continuation schools, our middle college program. We opened a campus this year at Yuba College. We have students that take high school classes in the morning, and they take college classes at Yuba College in the afternoon. In 4 years, they're going to graduate with a high school diploma and an AA degree. And they're well on their way to a fantastic future. And they're actually at Yuba College. They are truly Yuba. They are college kids, even as freshmen. Our adult school, as was mentioned earlier, has already 100 students this year. And I'll tell you what, at the end of last year, sitting through the adult education high school graduation was one of the most touching things I've been at, because these are people who weren't sure they were ever going to get there, and to be able to sit there and watch them get handed that diploma was just amazing. It's just a fantastic program. And then our preschools, we start them young, and so we have them from 3 all the way up until adults. So next slide, please. Mr. Trujillo mentioned wellness, and we have what we believe and everything we've heard is the first community pledge of its kind, and we have people in this room that have signed it. We realized, especially last year with some of the catastrophes and the things that happened in our community, that we needed to really focus on wellness for our students, wellness for our staff. And so we have a community pledge that we've taken all the way to Washington, D.C. to say, hey, we can't do this alone. The school district is a pillar of the community, but it's not the whole, as you know. We are all doing this together. And so the idea that we pledge for the wellness of all of our students and all of our staff together, our pledge is, as opposed to see something, say something, we want to see something and do something, because each of us have the ability to make a difference. And so that part of the wellness hubs that we have, that we're partnering with Yuba County, we're partnering with Peachtree, we're trying to open those up everywhere to really focus on wellness moving forward, to make sure that all of our students and all of our staff and our community as a whole is really getting the services that they need, which, especially over the last 3 years, I think we all know is a big area of need. And one more slide. And then one of the other things that's really, really critical to us is that we have safe schools, okay? And safe school means physically safe, but it also means that I also run the technology department, and it also means that we're safe when we're online. I've said forever, we don't just teach kids how to read and write, but we teach them how to behave on the playground. It's one of the things that we do as a school district. We teach the entire student. And as the world's changed, the playground has changed. And where we used to say, don't do that and don't push somebody when you're out on the playground, now we have to make sure that we're telling them, hey, be respectful when you're online, because it's a very different playground when they can't see your eyes. There's a very different playground when you get to be anonymous in the things that you do and say. And so trying to make sure we're teaching them how to behave online in that digital playground as well. But it's physical too. It's more fencing. Unfortunately, we live in a world where bad things have happened, and a lot of them have happened at schools. And it's really important to us that it never happens in one of ours again. We had it once. We don't need it ever to happen again in any of our schools. So that's really important. So we're looking at things like fencing and cameras and door buzzers. And on the digital side, it's the digital citizenship teaching them. It's to make sure that we're doing everything we can to stop ourselves from getting hit by cyber attacks, things like that. And so really, really keeping our students safe. We want to make sure that, why would you send your kids to our schools? Because you know when they go, they're going to be safe and they're going to get home. They're going to get home safely at the end of the day as well. So with that, I will hand it off.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jen Pasalia, the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services. And as Brian was talking to you about our campuses, we have 23 widespread. And that is one of our top priorities, is to provide optimal learning environments and safe environments for our students. And we have our buildings and grounds team that takes care of this. That includes our maintenance, our grounds, and our custodial. And they're dedicated to providing up-to-date, safe, and healthy campuses. And with our annual budget, we dedicate routine and deferred maintenance funds for this purpose. And as you can see, there's a list of things there. We use those funds for security fencing, gym upgrades, playground infrastructure, carpeting and wood floors. And we do a lot of that work during the summer months when our students are home. But for our more significant projects, we can only get money in 3 ways. Those are for construction and modernization, and that's through developer fees, our state facilities funding, and general obligation bonds. We used our GO bonds and our developer fees to fund the expansion at Arboga. It's now a TK through 8th grade, and it has a new state-of-the-art multipurpose room and 2 classroom buildings. And then during the pandemic, we received about $50 million worth of COVID relief funds, and we used about $28 million. We seeked approval from the CDE, California Department of Education, to do 3 big construction projects. We have them shown on the next slide there. One is the one you'll see downtown Covalad, Mary Covalad. We're doing a 2-story, 16-classroom building. We're also going to modernize our Foothill Intermediate School, which is long overdue. And then we're doing 2 tracks with our general fund dollars. Lyndhurst and Marysville High will both receive updated track and field facilities. And then also, what I failed to mention with our COVID relief funds, we put in a dance studio at MCAA Charter, and the students will use it for the first time tomorrow. It's our grand opening. And so that's it. That's how we use our funds and our budget to update our classrooms and keep our students in safe conditions.
I have a question for you then. I think I chatted with Dr. Serrani about this. I witnessed or watched part of the active shooter drill that the Marysville Police led, along with all of the other police agencies in our region at Marysville High. And I learned that Marysville Police Department does not have access to your security cameras. Is that still the case?
I think this is a question for Mr. Williams.
We are actually working on that right now. We just signed recently an MOU, and we're going out for a grant with Yuba County Sheriffs. The MOU that we wrote is one that would allow very easily for Marysville PD to actually come on board as well, where they would be able to have access to our cameras while they were actually in their patrol cars and at dispatch. So we're working on that with Yuba County Sheriffs right now through the grant that they had, and then the goal is to actually build that out.
Okay, the last I heard was there were some lawyers who were being a problem, so you've
No,
solved...
that is, we've got that taken care of. The MOU with Yuba County Sheriffs is already done, and I just have to say we have a wonderful relationship with both MPD
and it can help
it
can help in a fire. I mean, the more
Absolutely.
you know before you get there, the more effective you're going to be when you get there.
That's right.
I'm so glad you're doing that.
Yes, absolutely.
Chief, let us know how it goes. And please let us know how it goes, but I'll rely on him.
Absolutely.
I also want to thank you, though, for what you've done to help us with Covalad and 18th Street. Is it 18th Street? Because like we talk about safety and security, with Covalad being open all these years, all we know, the children would show up in the morning to the school with homeless issues, unfortunately, personal needs all over the campus, and seeing little kindergarten or preschool children walk in there. So we thank you for listening to our request to help us close that street. We also appreciate what you're doing to help us put up fences on 18th Street so that during the day, at least our children are safe on campus. And as school districts and community, the best we can do is we can do what we can do. We can put up the fences, we can lock it down, we can be safe, we can finger check, we have everybody with an ID getting in. And then we just pray that everybody is safe. And our little ones that we take care of, even though some are 18 years old, they're still going to be our little ones, that we protect them with everything we have. So we thank you. We really thank you for understanding and giving us your partnership and keeping our school safe. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you for your leadership, honestly.
It's our pleasure.
You, Chief.
Thank you.
Yes. We'll take any questions if you have. If not, we thank you.
I do have one more question. Dr. Serrani, we've chatted about this before. And I was in the investment business giving money to little companies who wanted to be big and big companies who wanted to be bigger. And there's always a pretty clear understanding what the use of proceeds would be. So you're going to raise between 80 to 100. It's in that range still. And is there a use of funds? For example, people in Marysville might want to know, well, before I vote for this, what's going to happen in Marysville as compared to elsewhere in the district. And it's only a natural, I'm not trying to pit one neighborhood or community against another, but I think each community, members of that community, are going to be curious what it's going to do for the district that their children go to school in.
Absolutely, and such a fair question. I think that's what we're working on right now. One of the things we do want to do is, as we proceed, talking more to the community about funding, helping the school raise some additional funds to build some middle schools. Conversations have happened about what happens to the Marysville Performing Art Theater, which was a cornerstone of the community. That has come up to the question. But also what we want to answer to the community is we just built a $20 million project with Covalot. We have just invested, just not even 5-10 years ago, McKinney, which has a brand new gym, and Marysville High with the science building, and we're putting in brand new tracks in Marysville. So I think we're doing a lot than we could have afforded if we had only gone for bond money. And I think the community needs to know that as a school district, we're responsible enough to know some things we just have to do ourselves. There's certain things we just can't do, for which we reach out and ask the community to help us.
The value proposition, in my mind, is twofold. One facet is what, and the other is where. And that'll help you sell this thing.
Absolutely, and we thank you for at least having the conversation with us, for helping us be transparent and open about our needs and just communicating with us, because that's all we can do is we can just ask for assistance and then move forward with what we can and cannot afford. And I think, as Jennifer said, in the last 2 years, we invested $50 million of the district funds to upgrade our schools. And people asked us, how did you do that? It was just good budgeting, good work from the district, good work with the team. We still have to continue to make our schools look beautiful, but it's going to be hard for us to find funding to build a middle school that costs almost $50 million to $60 million, I believe. So we'll be back with more information. Thank you for asking that question. We appreciate it.
Ma'am, you are an impressive executive, and thank you for being here.
Well, you're too kind, sir, but thank you so much.
Bravo. And thank you all for being here. Okay. I think community and consent, I'm not overlooking anything, am I? Okay. We will now move to the community and consent calendar forum. Individuals wishing to address the council concerning consent calendar items or on matters not already on the agenda are invited to make oral comments of up to 3 minutes. If you would like to comment and you are attending the meeting in person, please complete a speaker's card and return that to the city clerk. If you're not here in person, attending via Zoom, when called, you can raise your hand via Zoom, and whether by Zoom or in person, when called upon, please give your name clearly for audio recording. Requested to address your comments to the council and not to the audience. By state law, the council is not permitted to undertake any action or discussion on any item not on the posted agenda. If you have any documentation you'd like to be distributed to the council, please mail it to the city clerk, 526 E Street, Marysville, 95901. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Our first speaker will be John Kenyon.
Welcome, John. This man has been haunting my backyard.
We both filled out a card, so we get 6 minutes. We just wanted to give a brief update. Well, I'm actually going to give an update of what we've done. Laura's going to step in and sort of give you an update of things to come. So far, for the month of August till now, we kind of finished up our first month out there at the lake. We've been going out there every Saturday, somehow, some way, doing some work in little parts of the lake around. Every couple of weeks, we've been doing a larger event where we've been trying to rally 20, 30, 40 people. The first event, we had about 50 people show up. The second one, we had about 15. That's typical. That's how it works. But a lot of people, as the program progresses, we discover problems that we knew would arise. So we had little backup plans for that. One of those is we set up a poll on our Facebook group where it allows people to volunteer every single day of the week and not just on Saturdays. So what people do is they go in there and they sign up like a poll, and we end up with about 3-4 people a day that will go out at some point during the day that's convenient for them, and they walk the lake and they pick up garbage and they do that part. And it really does help us because by the time we get to our event days, we can focus on no trash and just do the yard work and the trimming of the trees. That is an area that we've honed in on. We honed in on cutting back some of the trees and plant life. It was Jumanji in there, everyone. So we went through and cleared back a lot of the brush that was overleaning the sidewalks and whatnot. Cleared out a couple of areas that were sort of being used as camp areas. So, they are not. I was accused of being anti-homeless. I am not anti-homeless, for the record. It'd be nice for the park to be safe for everybody. So we've actually been going out there and making sure we've been cleaning up the areas. We have noticed a little bit of a clear out since we've been doing some of the pruning and whatnot. And one area, I think I sent an email over to Nicole. Did you get that? Okay, good. Just kind of expressing a little bit of the concerns that we've had in terms of the unhoused population. It's basically kind of like we understand that that problem is going to be around. It's not going to go anywhere. Not anti-homeless, as we said, but we have discovered in a lot of different areas where there have been camps, there have been areas where there's been a lot of feces. There's been right there in the park, a lot of needles, a lot of open drugs and pills spilled out all around those almost every time that I go there. So the issue there is more for the children. You don't have a lot of people that want to volunteer and bring children. Well, they do, but we make sure that they're only sticking to the lake and not wandering up towards the picnic areas because it's just not safe for them with a lot of the stuff that's left there. So we, the adults, handle that part up there and let the parents with kids handle it down further. So before I hand it over to Laura, I have to say it's been really nice seeing the sort of marriage between the community and the city council in working hand in hand to see this thing happen. A lot of people have stepped up. A lot of people have volunteered their time. This month of August, we had close to 300 volunteer hours that we kept track of from people all over the community. And it's been a pleasure working with them. It's been a pleasure working with the city. We've had a lot of ease with the city and not a lot of barricades or red tape, so that's been kind of nice. So with that, I'm going to yield what I think was 5 minutes of the time over to Laura for future updates.
Mine's actually going to be kind of quick. You've got a letter in front of you. It's actually made out to the city manager. Oh, no. Is it still sitting there? Yeah, well, it's for it's actually for the city manager. We were told by Sean Davis, Public Works, to bring up to you what we're going to be doing. And the letter kind of explains it, that this Saturday we're doing like a major thing, and we just need you to get behind us on it. We have a boat going on the water. A motorboat? Yeah, a motorboat going on the water, and 3 kayaks. And the kayaks are just mainly going to be picking up trash because the lake looks so much better, but there's still all that trash in the water that we can't get to. So, and also besides the trash, we've got a mechanism that we have looked on YouTube. We got it made where it actually removes the scum from ponds. So that is the algae is going to be another thing that puts behind the boat. Kayaks are just for the trash, and the motorboat is specifically to drag that. And we also have Recology set up with a dumpster at the peninsula there on 11th, and that they've got it set up. They're going to drop it off Friday for us. So whatever comes out of that lake, we're going to have about 15, 20 people waiting with shovels, and we're shoveling into that dumpster. And all we need, we've got it all figured out. I got a boat. I've been doing a lot of work today. And all we need is an okay from you, sir, to let us go ahead and do it.
A lot of pressure.
Not really. So
It's all you.
I haven't heard anything that would be unreasonable. We may just need to talk about waivers for the people in the kayaks and
all
stuff.
signed.
And I do want to visit with you on the pond scum removal.
Okay.
We'll have more to talk about the lake in general tonight. when we get to the next discussion item.
Okay.
So I would stick around for that, and then I'll take a look at the letter, and we'll coordinate that activity. I think that is a wonderful,
Excellent.
wonderful idea. I think kayaks would work well.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, we're hoping that kayaks could be part of the recreation out there anyway.
All right. Thank you.
Along with my applause, I'd like to commend these folks. I meant to join them last Saturday, but I had promised Carmen Baines I'd be at a park dedication. The work they do is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And the spirit of these folks doing this, I'm in awe, absolutely in awe and appreciation. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Our final speaker will be Donna Wahlberg.
Is this on both issues, or? Okay.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you all? I came here to talk about Ellis Lake, and I've been working with the Rossellini crew. So thankful they headed that up, and it's a very rewarding effort and a lot of work. We need tools, though. I'll get to that one later. But I didn't really know that the presentation from Marysville Joint Unified School District was going to be on today, but I listened to it, and I just had a comment. They get $50 million. I know with inflation and everything, that's not a whole lot of money, but I know that a lot of strings are attached to receiving that money, and I hear things like the surveillance cameras and being so involved in health and wellness. And I know mandates are on the way again. COVID, there's a new strain out. They're going to be wanting, well, they even talked about the fact that they're masking kids and how they have to, change how they monitor their interactions because they can't see each other's expressions. So there's different kinds of conflicts or problems out on the playground. And it's just, I just wanted to comment, it's heartbreaking to me what our kids are being subjected to today with being masked. Nobody's looking at the science. It's harmful. It's harmful physically. They talked about the kids being masked. I think they're probably going to be asking that vaccines be required. Again, I know some universities are. Anyway, it's coming again. I just want to say, I hope this time everybody stands up and says, no, we're not going to do it because it's not based on science. And that we all need to start standing up for our freedom when we see things that seem kind of subtle and like, for instance, when George Bush passed the Patriot Act because of the Iran conflict. So it chipped away at our rights to privacy, gave them the right to do searches without a warrant. Things like that. So now we've got surveillance coming in. All this stuff, it chips away at our freedom. I wasn't prepared to speak on this. I just want to tell everyone to get your Constitution out, learn about your freedoms, and pay attention to what's going on. And in decisions you make, if you're going to receive money from any grants or anything, be careful about what strings are attached and take into consideration the Constitution, and make sure it's not going to have requirements that are going to violate our constitutional rights. That's all. I just wanted to comment. So thank you.
Madam Clerk.
No further speakers, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, I have something else I get to read. Okay, we now move to the consent calendar. All matters, just to remind you all matters on the consent agenda are considered routine and are therefore approved by one motion unless a council member or the city manager first requests that a matter be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. What is the will of the council?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
And seconded. Any further discussion? None heard. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We now move to the discussion and action calendar. This is different. All matters in this section of the agenda are discussed and will be acted on individually. Members of the public may request to speak on any of these items for up to 3 minutes when called upon for public comment. If you would like to comment and you are attending this meeting in person, please complete a speaker's card, return it to the city clerk. If you're on Zoom, raise your hand via Zoom and you'll be acknowledged in due course. Whether here in person or attending via Zoom, when called upon, please give your name clearly for recording. If you have any documentations you'd like to share, please mail it to the city clerk, 526 C Street, Marysville, 95901. Okay, we have, make sure I'm not missing anything. I don't think I am. We have items. We have one item on the action calendar, discussion action calendar. And this item is Ellis Lake discussion and consulting agreement with MHM Inc. Recommendation is have a discussion and pass a motion to approve consulting agreement with MHM Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $28,732 to perform a topographic and bathymetric survey of Ellis Lake. And this is actually two items in one. I had asked for just a discussion item.
Oh, it is on the agenda.
No, I understand. It's right here. I'm not criticizing anybody.
Oh,
everything's okay.
We missed something.
Oh, did I miss something?
No, I thought I did.
Oh, there we go. Okay. The lake looks awful. We all know that. At our last council meeting, a couple of us went over to Stassi's, as we do, and we don't talk city business because that would be a violation of the Brown Act. But we ran into our friend and former mayor, Ricky. And Ricky said, the lake. And I said, Ricky, I hear that with everyone I encounter, and we are really on this. And so we will be featuring Ellis Lake as the first item on the discussion and action agenda as long as I have any influence over the agenda. It is a challenging problem. It affects just the beauty in your eye. It takes the eye in the wrong direction. But it also has an impact on people's feelings about the city, and we can't allow that to stand. City management is doing a first-rate job in addressing the long-term and the short-term solutions for the lake. There's a short-term solution that Mr. Shad will share with us, and he will bring us up to date on the work towards a long-term solution for the lake. Again, the whole point of my comments here are this is a number one agenda item, and it will remain so until we have a clearer sense of both the short and long-term resolutions for the lake. Mr. Shad.
Okay, as the mayor mentioned, this is a two-part item. The first item is to discuss Ellis Lake in general, the water quality, and the second is the consulting agreement with MHM to do a topographic study. I would like to start with the topographic study, though, because I think that is the simpler discussion, and then address the lake water quality second. So I'm not sure if John has been able to join us from MHM. He is my backup if I run into technical questions that I can't answer, but I will kick it off and start. A topographic study is an electronic mapping of the terrain and features of a given area, and that is what we're doing with Ellis. We're proposing to do with Ellis Lake. As you may have recalled, recently we committed to having Roach and Campbell do some design work on the green space around the lake so that we can start planning and looking for funding to rehabilitate the green space. The water issue we'll save for later, as I mentioned. MHM has given us an estimate of $28,732 to do this topographic survey and study. And you may ask, well, what does that consist of? On the second page of the council report, it lists the scope, which is significant. It will include all ground surveys, record data search, right-of-way map, record all curb, gutter, sidewalk, edge of pavement, or road wall structures, fencing, gates, tree diameter less than or greater than 4 inches, landscaping, and so on and so on. Basically, it records and maps electronically every feature in the park so that when the design engineers or design entity, the landscape architect, starts working on it, they have a starting point. And so it will take several days for MHM to go out and physically survey the lake with their surveying instruments, and then more time to convert that into a computer-aided drafting format so that Roach and Campbell can use that in their design work. We are also having them do the bathymetric study. That's a fancy word for mapping out the bottom of the lake. We're very interested in seeing how deep that is and what might be in there, or irregularities in there that might affect our water quality initiatives. So that's what the topographic study is about. That is what we're asking for approval on tonight, that singular item. The water quality issue is a separate item that I intend to discuss, but there's no action at this point on that item. I'm not sure, we may want to vote for the topographic study initially and then go on to the water quality, or we can hold the vote to the end.
Real quickly, one of the features that's envisioned in the landscaping, the new landscaping around the lake, would be to make the pathways wide enough for 2 people to go around.
2 people and
side
maybe
by side.
bicycles.
Right now, it's a conga line. You got one after another, and I see these families come around the lake, one after another, and it's just not the same experience, I don't think, unless you're side by side. Anyway, that's just one of the...
That is one of the major goals of the design work, is get a nice walkable pathway, 6-foot pathway all the way around the lake. That will possibly require reconfiguring some of the lake interior to gain space to get that pathway in, because there are some very tight spaces where a 6-foot pathway probably isn't doable in its current configuration. So any questions on the topographic study at this point? I would recommend we put that forth, vote on that, and then I can give the update on the water quality.
I'd like to make a motion to vote to approve.
I second.
And do we need discussion on that, or are we just going to approve it? Because yeah.
I apologize, Madam Clerk.
We do. Thank you, Mayor. Our first speaker will be Donna Wahlberg.
Hello again. Yes, I am actually. I'm commending you that this is on the agenda again and that you're staying after it, because it's what it's going to take. It's exactly what it's going to take, is a sustained effort. And I'm as committed as the Russellinis to make this happen. But we need tools. Oh, my goodness. I like the proposal for the topography. I think it's a great idea to be able to, hopefully someday be able to walk side by side with our loved ones or families. But my biggest concern is always the lake itself and the scum on the lake, and how are we going to deal with that? And we haven't had the right tools. Thought you were cutting me off, Anyway, we don't really have tools. Luckily, they were able to muster up some volunteers to loan kayaks and a boat, and because we need to get out there on the water and deal with that scum. I just about broke my back using a extendable swimming pool net, trying to get as far out there as I could to get some of that off. That doesn't work. Don't do it. Anyway, as far as the water quality, what I know there's some issues with the how you deliver it from the river and all that. But just throwing this out there, wonder if it might not be a bad idea to dam off half of the lake, completely empty, have all the fish and everything over there, completely empty one side, clean it up, resurface it, start with a new beginning, then fill it up with good water, relocate whatever living fish and everything is on the other side back there, drain that side, clean it up, resurface it, start with a new beginning. And hopefully, in a way...
We have a better plan than that.
You do?
Yes.
Well, I know there are better minds than mine, that's for sure.
We'll do the whole damn lake at once.
Oh, well. Anyway, I'd sure like to see a fresh start and for us to be able to eliminate this whole issue altogether. And I appreciate your sustained efforts, and I'll be coming back. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we matters before the council, and we still have a motion and a second.
Kim. Back to discussion. Approving to hire for the topography, correct?
Yeah, after we have a second, then we can have some council discussion.
Did I make the first? I made the first.
I made the second.
Oh, then.
Second.
Okay. Did you want to engage in further discussion?
Well, I'd love to engage in further discussion because of the importance of doing this topography map and the also measuring the depth of the lake. And what this does is it puts it into a CAD format, which is computer-aided design, which means any and every agency moving forward will have a complete and direct access to a map of Ellis Lake, which we've never really had before. And in fact, the cost on this is very good because the cost of doing the entire lake, which is what, a 4 or 5 or 6 block, how many acres, is about the same cost it would take to do a map, a CAD drawing of a building. So this is actually fantastic because it gives us the location for everything we need to know when moving forward on redoing some parts of the lake. So I highly recommend we get this going as soon as possible.
Any further comments or discussion? Noting none, it's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Madam Clerk, that was unanimous. My ear. Thank you. Okay, we have had discussion and action. Oh no. And did you want to continue with speaking about the future?
I was expecting everybody to want to talk about the water.
But it's important to talk about this.
And I have a page worth of notes here. I'm trying to hit the high points or the importance points on where we're at with the water quality analysis. Dan Bergman has been working diligently to gather information and develop a preliminary report on what he's found so far and some early recommendations. A lot of his work has been getting information from a plethora of sources and separating out perhaps some urban myth from fact and trying to get the facts down so that we can have a good decision-making process. I expect that we will be scheduling meetings with council members individually starting next week, and that would start with our mayor and vice mayor who have been on the cutting edge of this, I should say. Just to brief them on where we're at and get their input. I also expect to give a preliminary status report at the next council meeting on the 19th, which would provide recommendations for short-term mitigation of algae and plant growth. Actually, did I say the 19th? The next council meeting is the 19th. I've been getting mixed up 17th, 19th all day. Anyway, we should have Dan here to give a presentation on that on the 19th. What we will likely be discussing and recommending is the first item, treatment of the lake for algae and aquatic plants. We've submitted a permit with the State Water Resource Control Board to use chemicals to treat the lake, and we're expecting an approved permit in the mid-October time frame. There is a 30-day public input period that chews up most of the time, but we have a consultant working on submitting that as we speak. We will likely be asking council for approval to mechanically remove some of the aquatic weeds based on recommendations, and we will likely also be asking council for approval to treat the lake chemically on an ongoing basis until we can get a long-term solution in place. We do have a preliminary cost estimate on piping water in from the Yuba River. That estimate was performed by MHM. I have a great respect for their estimating capabilities, and the total cost, including permitting and all the regulatory requirements, is roughly $3 million. Of that, 1.85 is construction. It's what I would call a higher risk project, so we have a 15% contingency as well at $310,000. Soft costs, which are design, project management, and encroachment permit costs, at $480,000, and the original HDR estimate of $340,000 for all of the regulatory permitting and stuff required by probably 10 different state and federal agencies is estimated at $340,000. So roughly $3 million to get water from the Yuba River in capital costs.
Sir, if I may, I understood that to include creating a brand new pathway from the point where the water would enter the city, from that point to the lake.
Yes.
And there is a potential possibility, or possible is, I guess, the right word, that there may be an existing pathway that could be exploited at a lower cost. And in fact, that pathway is the most expensive element of the $3 million.
I believe the construction of the new pipeline pathway from the levee to the lake was a little over $1 million, so it is the largest component. The other two were two elements. The fish screen pump assembly to get it to the levee is roughly $450, I believe, and the levee crossing pipe is another $450, roughly. So don't quote my math, but those are the rough numbers.
Got it.
I was doing that on the fly. So, yes, that pipeline is the most expensive. It is the easiest methodology to cost out relative to the use of the storm drain and abandoning it for use for this purpose only. There's a lot more analysis that needs to go into the storm drain estimate than just putting a new dedicated pipeline in. So bottom line is, if the storm drain came in at a higher cost than a dedicated line, we'd obviously go with the dedicated line. If there was a material or significant cost reduction by using the storm drain, we would likely use the storm drain. So we're not ready to make that decision, but we do have what I would call a fairly good estimate of the entire project at $3 million. In talking to
Jim, excuse me.
Yes.
Can I comment on that real quick?
Sure.
Just to clarify, because I was involved with that process, and John can correct me if I'm wrong, but just so you understand the intensity of using the existing line, that was a matter that there's two lines running in there, and there are storm drains running into each one. So there's got to be some calculations of moving the ones that go into one of the two and put them all into the same one, and will it even be able to maintain the flow so you can use the dedicated one on top of whatever condition it's in?
You hit it on the head, and it could very well be either infeasible to do it because of the utilities, moving the utility from one pipeline to the other. But John and I and Vincenzo and I had a long talk about this today. There could be other utilities that make it sewer, electrical, that make it difficult to do that as well. So it will take a little more analysis. But just to get a figure out there, we're looking at roughly $3 million either way. I have reached out to the water agency, and we have been discussing a possibility of a contractual arrangement with the Yuba Water Agency to acquire the water at a reasonable cost. So that looks doable. Our estimate to turn the water over in the lake 9 times per year during the hot months is about 1,700 acre-feet of water to do so. As the mayor mentioned, the pump inlet will have to be relocated. The PG&E is gone, so we're starting over there anyway. But we would likely locate the pump inlet further downstream where the water is deeper and put in a whole new mechanism, and that estimate reflects that. I would be remiss if I don't state this. So every entity we have discussed this with, there's been a consensus that bringing phosphate-free water in from the Yuba River should make a difference. It should help with water quality. The other consensus with all of the people we've talked to is we don't know how much difference it will make in overall water quality. And it's my belief that we won't know exactly how much difference it will make until we actually do it.
I could actually speak to that. I'm old enough to have been around that lake when it was being pumped, when water was being pumped out of the river and through it. The water was reasonably clear. People were water skiing and swimming in the lake. Right. So it will be much better if it's anything like it was.
Can I take a moment and also speak to that? Part of that cleaning of the lake was getting the old bad water out, right? In that time, it was pumping the lake into Jack Slough and Jack Slough flowing into the Feather River, at which time we can't do that anymore because of EPA regulations. So I will pitch this time and time and time again that I think it would behoove us to also have Mr. Mallon with MHM and Dan Bergman. I'll speak with Dan when we're able to have our one-on-one meetings, but to identify faster routes of lowering the water rather than just relying on evaporation, which is basically what the process would be in these proposals. Another solution of using Ellis Lake water as irrigation water to the soccer fields, to the softball fields, to Cotton Rosser Pavilion, which I believe would be a pretty much simpler pipeline than what we're talking about with the designated line coming in. I believe that line can be a simple irrigation line, like an agricultural irrigation line going from the pump systems to the fields. So it'd be interesting to see what that would contribute, and it would lower the water. I don't know what the numbers are, but it would lower the water much quicker and would allow a lot more clean water to come in and clean the lake faster and more thoroughly.
And I probably haven't communicated this well. I had mentioned that our thought process is turning the water over 9 times per year. That means not emptying the lake 9 times a year, but pumping enough water through the lake that would equate to circulating 9 times the volume of the lake per year. How we pull that out, one option is just to let it flow back into the river, and that would need to be verified that we can do that through the permitting process. The other is the soccer field, and frankly, I think that's a good idea to explore and cost out, because we have a major water line running the length of the Riverfront, Beckworth Riverfront Park that may easily be able to tap into. So that may be a way to utilize some of that water rather than just letting it go into the slough. And so definitely want to talk about. The other part that we were talking about that we don't have yet is just an estimate on what it would take to drain the lake completely, scrape out the sediment, and possibly deepen it. But I've been working with Mr. Mallon on that as well. One of the things we don't have fully costed out is, or defined, is the feasibility and cost of treating the well water at the source. And one of the challenges is, if we're talking about circulating that much water, whether treating to remove phosphates can be done that quickly as the water is pumped in that volume. So without very expensive holding tanks and stuff like that. So we'll be talking to the treatment folks a little bit more on that. And the last thing I would say is, regardless of the water source, there will likely still be a need to manage and treat the lake to some extent on an ongoing basis. In talking to the people that do this, that we've been, they treat lakes, they treat a lot of lakes. They've seen situations where the water can be very, very clean as far as minerals and contaminants and nutrients, but there still may need to be some treatment. We somewhat saw that firsthand when we clarified the water through treatment of binding the phosphates. The algae died, and the aquatic plants loved that. And so we saw a spike in the growth of the aquatic plants, which then have to be managed. So I don't think we're going to get away with just pumping water out of the Yuba River. I think that is going to help significantly, but I think we're also going to have some lake management expenses along with it. So that is my report, but my intent is to get with the council members individually within the next week and share in more detail the information we have.
To the chair, I have one question. Is the timing of harvesting of the plants affected by the permitting for the algae treatment?
So,
or can we move forward on the harvesting of the plants?
The mechanical removal does not have to wait for the permit, and so likely I'll be asking for permission to expend the money to harvest, and then once we get the permit, move forward with treatment, chemical treatment. And those once again are short-term measures until we can get a long-term solution in place. One thing I missed in here is the long-term permitting process. So far, we have 3 environmental consultants that are indicating that process may take up to 2 years to get done. So I think we got a pretty good estimate on time. regarding the regulatory and permitting process. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
I might comment that the permitting process, the consultant we'd spoken with in the past has since retired, but when we spoke with him, and he's very successful and knowledgeable, said that, and this was repeated by chief executive at the water agency, says you'll start talking to someone at an agency that has jurisdiction over the matter you want to cover. You'll start talking to that person, then all of a sudden that person isn't there anymore. And the next person comes in and has a whole new set of ideas. So it'll be really important to pin down and hold those people responsible and see if we can exert some influence. I don't know what kind of influence would be done, but it's the real problem is the turnover and the discretion that each of these people have, at least in terms of being able to slow you down. And this is such an important matter. I can't imagine a city in the state that wouldn't love to have a lake like Ellis Lake in the middle of their city, of course with clean water and what have you. And we're so very fortunate to have this jewel in our city. It needs the attention. It takes a lot of work. And you can hear from Mr. Shadd's description of all of the aspects and facets of the problem, that it may be a straight line, here's where we are and here's where we want to be, but there's hurdles along the way, and executing on those hurdles will require good management and which we have, and then excellent staff to execute on that.
And I would comment on the permitting process. Just the permit to apply the chemicals as an example. The consultant that we're working with, or the lake management company, is processing that permit. But we've also talked to the State Water Resource Board representative. Very, very helpful, very, very responsive. Gave us an actual date, fairly, good date, October 15th, to have this permit in place. But the process is really what tends to slow this down, particularly because in these types of ventures, there's a lot of waiting periods for public input. In this case, 2/3 of the time is related to just public input waiting. So I expect that's going to be a lot of the challenge as well with the other permitting processes, just the process they go through itself and the waiting periods and the public input required.
It's absolutely maddening in some respects. And then we have other folks involved in attempting to solve this problem who are farmers to their soul. Well, why don't you just do it, and to hell with all the regulators? And that might work out on the farm, but we are in a different environment. We are high profile, and the steps that I'm observing our city manager take are painful, yes, but appropriate and necessary to get from point A to point B and not be penalized for a victory.
Chair.
Sir.
So, Jim, did I hear you right? You said that you've already had conversations with the company that could perform the mechanical removal. I'm sure they've already talked to you about a price on that, and you're willing to bring that to us at the next council meeting? Is that what?
Yes, and I don't really want to discuss pricing because we're working with multiple potential providers.
Thank you. Okay.
In fact, Mr. Bergman had conversation with another potential provider today. We don't have a price from them.
That explains
so,
more. Okay.
Hopefully I'll be able to share some pricing information with you this week individually, and then we'll bring it to council with that pricing at that point.
That clarifies that. I thought we had an understanding before this meeting, so thank you. So, because once that is said and done, we can go ahead and move forward with that step because it doesn't have to wait for the permit process.
Correct.
So I'm excited about moving forward with that step.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm hoping to have that step ready to go so that if approved by council, we can react quickly.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, moving forward with the agenda. Stay on board. We move to a public hearing. This public hearing there's one item. It will be acted on individually. Members of the public may request to speak when called upon for public comment. The matter for public hearing is item number 6 on the agenda, vehicle tow services franchise agreements for 2023 to 2025. Recommendation: pass a motion adopting an appropriately numbered resolution authorizing the city manager or his designee to enter vehicle tow service franchise agreements. The contact is Chief Christian Sachs. Where do we go from here?
Can I present from here? Would you like me to present?
You can present from wherever you want, Chief.
Okay.
That looks good to me.
Mr. Mayor, Honorable Council, so before you is a pass a resolution appropriately numbered. In order to adhere to the municipal code, staff is required to release a proposal to the public for requested proposals for inclusion on our rotation tow list. Each year we tow hundreds of vehicles, and so it's a 2-year rotation. And in accordance with Chapter 10.18 of the Marysville Municipal Code, staff released the attached request proposals to the public, requesting proposals for inclusion on our rotation list. And as required, we reviewed all those proposals and found the following tow service operators should be included in the next tow service rotation. Appropriately named in here: Baines Towing, Dan Preston, Dick's Towing, Easy Towing, Iwiki, LMT, Los Amigos, Randy Sanchez, and WAP Towing. For the upcoming rotation cycle, all the franchise agreements are to be a term of 2 years. So they pay they pay each year to be on the rotation, and it's a 2-year agreement. So it's been sent to the public. We have reviewed said documents, and we approved these listed tow companies as stated. Be happy to answer any other questions.
Madam Clerk, that was her comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any comment on this matter?
Not for this item, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. So, time for public comments closed. What is the will of the council?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve and second. Any further comment on the matter? Noting none, all in favor?
Aye.
Madam Clerk, that is passed. Okay. Let's combine committee reports and any comments or requests. We'll start with Councilman Gilchrist.
I have very excited with the progress of Ellis Lake. So thank you, city staff, for generating all of this really important information to get us to this point. And I'm hoping that what we can do once we've gotten there and we've achieved success is we create what would be normally called an operations manual. So the next council and for the next 50 years or what have you actually has a game plan to maintain Ellis Lake, which would be awesome. And I don't know how that's possible, but I would assume that would be part of the general plan as it augments economic development, etc. Oh, and that's it. That's all my comments.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Hudson?
I don't necessarily have any community reports, council comments. Jim and staff, thank you very much for your work on this Ellis Lake. That is huge. I'm excited about the idea of moving forward, cleaning the lake out, and just going from there. So, furthermore, I'd just like to publicly congratulate Councilmember Bill's birthday. You know, I thought the shirt would be loud enough, but you know, I just wanted to say happy birthday. It was a great party. Happy 40th birthday. So I guess it was also other birthdays this month too. So to all of you guys, happy birthday. Go from there. Looking forward to moving forward with the lake. Thank you very much for everything you guys are doing and everything, the staff and the city, Public Works. Everything's looking good. I'm excited about roads, Chinzo. Get going on that soon, I hope. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Bells.
Well, thank you. Not sure how thankful I am you wore that shirt, but nonetheless, thank you for the birthday wishes. So, not much to report as far as committees goes. I do want to bring up something. I was approached by some staff from our Assemblyman's office, and they were looking for support in regards to ACA 13. That's Assembly Constitutional Amendment 13. And I don't believe that we had enough time to be able to have a full discussion about it. So I said the best I could do would potentially bring it up in council comments. Essentially, it's an attempt to change some of the voting percentages as it pertains to Prop 13. And I think one of the reasons why they reached out to me is because I'm always an advocate in property rights and protecting property rights. And Prop 13 has been a California law that's been in place that's really protected us from increased taxes on our property taxes, and which has been extremely helpful to many people from different income streams and seniors and first-time home buyers and many different arenas. It's been extremely beneficial that taxes can't go up and down at a whim. And so currently the percentage is a 2/3 vote in order to change anything with Prop 13, and that's from the people. What this does is potentially would allow like a 50% plus one vote. Now, I've looked into it and I've read through different materials, and I'm in very much opposition to this ACA 13. I'm going to ask that a letter be circulated, and Council, I want to seek your advice on the appropriateness of this, of whether or not it can be an actual city drafted letter that if a council person were to agree with the content of the letter could sign on to it, or if it would be more appropriate to be a letter from maybe myself, that if a council person was to agree to the content of the letter, then they could sign on to it. Obviously, having the city letterhead on that carries a lot more weight than just an individual letter. But nonetheless, I committed myself to help raise awareness and to oppose this particular action. And the reason that there's a urgency on it is because the Assembly's session ends on the 15th of September. So there is not enough time to have a true presentation and a formal letter drafted as an agenda item, if you will. So anyhow, Council, I don't know which route is the best route to go on that. We'll follow your advice. Okay. That sounds great. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
I have no committee reports, and I don't know there's too much more to say about the lake. I know we're all thrilled about moving it, and I'm old enough to remember too, Mr. Mayor, when the water was clean and people were skiing.
You're not that old.
Yeah. I was watching then. I was watching, I wasn't skiing. And I wanted to thank Vincenzo for getting that fountain going. My understand was this may possibly be somewhat of a permanent fix this time than it was kind of in a, I don't know, I want to say temporary, but not as sufficient as this particular fix was. Is that correct?
Yes, Vice Mayor. I believe maybe it's several months ago, you asked about the fountain, and we had the flexible hosing, and this time we went above ground. The previous underground piping that broke. We tried flexible hoses, that broke, and then this time it's above, at the surface. So yes, this hopefully is a good.
Hopefully, this
long-term
is the
solution.
permanent one.
Right.
Well, thank you for having your guys on that. I appreciate it.
I'm going to hit a few topics quickly. First, I was really happy to hear that there's been progress, Chief Sachs, with the high school, with the schools, in getting access to their video feeds. It was when you were leading, actually, the active shooter drill. I was told that it was lawyers in the way and privacy concerns, but safety concerns should trump that, and apparently they have. Thank goodness. Glad you made that kind of progress. Prop 13, I'm trying to figure out how Prop 13, that has a provision that takes 2/3 to change it, can be changed by another vote of less than 2/3, or a vote in the.
If I can speak to that.
Please.
So what ACA 13 would do is to actually put it on the March ballot for us to vote as a state to lower it.
Well, we'll see. There's the League of California Cities and various public employee unions want more money, and this would be a huge change. That's 1978. That goes a ways back. Ellis Lake. The folks who are here, the volunteers doing that work, I can't say enough nice things about those folks. What they do is you can see the progress they make, and goodness sakes, we've got a terrific public works staff, but they've got a lot of tasks, and they do work around the lake. These folks making a big difference. One of the things that's bothered me, and Chief Sachs, I'm certain you noted the same thing, is they cautioned against going to the picnic areas. And that picnic area, particularly across from the Elks Lodge, I saw police cars there earlier with red lights flashing. It looks like criminal activity every time I go by. But we'll make progress on that too. Hotel Marysville, the owner of the company, Urban Smart Growth, which owns, and Urban Smart Growth is the owner of the Hotel Marysville property, as well as two other corners at the intersection of 5th and E Streets. So it's the Hotel Marysville, the southwest corner, and the northeast corner. Lance Robbins. And I know different people have different feelings about him. I got along well with him. He was a very careful man, and things were moving slowly. And he passed away, as most people know now, it was well reported on in the Appeal. He passed away a week ago last Thursday in New York City, and buried last Wednesday. I placed a call to Mr. Robbins' lady friend, wonderful woman, Bobby Goldman, in New York City. She was with Lance, holding his hand when he passed. They were a very close relationship. Just to express condolences to the one person I knew him on an emotional level primarily. And I asked, I didn't ask much about the business. I passed along our respects. It's going to be interesting to see. We don't know who the new heirs are to the ownership, and there may be a legal heir, meaning a trustee and beneficiary heirs, beneficiaries of a trust. We don't know that. And so it raises questions, and we'll hope to get answers sooner than later. Finally, traffic. I got a call today from a former congressman about SACOG. I'm on the SACOG Board of Directors representing the city of Marysville. I'm also on the Transportation Committee there. And I often say, and I think this characterizes things appropriately, that in terms of transportation, if a program doesn't put you on a bus or a bicycle, SACOG isn't all that much for it. That overstates it, but it makes a point. They are more than hesitant to build any new roads, expand roads, except for the purpose of funneling more traffic through the city of Marysville. And Marysville needs a bypass, and I'll guarantee you SACOG will fight that. And the congressman was talking about SACOG standing in the way of substantial developments planned around the city of Sacramento. SACOG is staffed primarily by planners who are in favor of everybody moving into downtown and living in a high-rise. Again, that overstates it, but it makes the point. And there's a lot to be said for that. You know, walkability and an urban environment. It's not going to happen in Marysville. We should go vertical. I know Stuart imagined things along the vertical, but that's not in our immediate future. We and particularly Yuba County and the areas that the city considers in its sphere of influence want growth. And SACOG is of a different mindset. And it's interesting, I've had conversations with members of other communities, Sutter County in particular, on the wisdom of Yuba County remaining a part of SACOG. What's Marysville get out of it? And it's something I
Not for this meeting, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. City Manager, do you have anything else you wish to report on?
I do.
Oh, no. Oh, excuse me.
I do.
I had 8 o'clock.
We've been talking about a lot of the things that we want to tackle, Ellis Lake traffic and such, but I wrote this list up earlier, not realizing that Mr. Flores had a lot of influence on it because it's mostly optimism. So a few items, and I would say celebrating some success. We'll start with fire. Fire had strike team deployments out in Northern California, giving help to the folks up there. They have since returned, had a great deployment with engine 226, I believe it was, and the crew and the engine are back safe and sound. So the acquisition of that engine has given good results for our department as well as the state. PD has been enforcing the downtown area pretty heavily, mostly moving violations such as stop sign running. Chief typically gives me a brief report, and it's amazing that not only have we found lots of moving violations. I think one morning they wrote up 9 people for stop sign violations in one small area of town. I think that's part of our strategy, along with traffic calming, to slow people down on our surface streets. In those items, they found there were also several secondary offenses, more serious, driving without a license or a suspended license,
warrants for arrest. So we're interested to see how the DA will process those cases and whether they'll be out on the street running stop signs again. Also, a lot of talk about Ellis Lake. Mayor mentioned he saw flashing lights out at Ellis Lake. They have been beefing up their enforcement on Ellis Lake and even had some late night visits by his officers and I think the community service officer as well to deal with illegal camping along the lake shore. Another thing that Chief is working on is the license plate reading cameras. You guys approved that. He's working with the company Flock, I think it is, to deploy those at our city entrances so we can more effectively track incidents similar to the youth that were run over in the north side of town by the high school recently. They track those folks down through, or that person down through similar cameras, and we intend to put them on all entrances. We are seeing long time, 9 months potentially, to get them deployed because Caltrans is indicating that it takes 9 months to get an encroachment permit to do that. So we will be pushing to get that done. Gavin Park, contractor will be out, I believe Wednesday, correct, Vincenzo, to start putting up play equipment. So that's moving along. Pre-construction meeting for street paving. You guys should all be interested in that. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, and the official groundbreaking where everybody gets a nice golden shovel to hold on the 13th at 10 o'clock. Ribbon cutting at 10 o'clock tomorrow for the 71 unit complex. Then with all of our work at Bryant Park, we have landed the Yuba-Sutter Social Club's annual Brewfest, and that's on September 30th at 3 o'clock. So that's taken off. And then the last thing I have is reopening of the Ville restaurant at 515 4th Street. So all good news in my mind. So we spent a lot of time tonight talking about all the things we haven't gotten done. There's quite a big list of things we have gotten done, and some many of them are starting to pay off and provide some value. So that was my report.
Thank you, sir. The next regular meeting of Marysville City Council will be Tuesday, September 19th at 6 p.m. And I have been asked by a representative of the Sodaro family to present the following. The Sodaro family, of course, has been very important to the city of Marysville and the Peach Festival, which is one of the gala events in our city each year. And the loss of that family of Mr. Josh Baggett. And they've asked that we close this meeting in his honor. With your approval, we will do that. Meeting is adjourned. Yeah.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.